Good morning. Yeah, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. Hi. Yeah, thanks for watching. Episode 4 of the Uncle Lou Show live. And, I've been talking about this for a while, about having some guests and some co-hosts on here. We had Spencer talk some NFL with us last week, and, I didn't let you guys down today. I have another guest here for you guys today. Now, a lot of you are gonna know who this guy is. He does have a YouTube channel, and I know a lot of you are subscribed to him. Either you found him through me, or maybe you found me through him. But in any case, we have Catfish from the Volunteer Road Show. Good morning, Catfish.
Good morning, Uncle Lou. Sure is great to be on your show. You are the creme de la creme of YouTube, I'm telling you, and it's an honor.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I do appreciate you coming on today. Now, you started your YouTube channel really not that long ago, at least as far as I know, in terms of making football videos and Tennessee videos. Was this past season your first season doing that on YouTube?
Yeah, BBD talked me into doing it, and I've got to thank you for helping me out. I started this September, and I really didn't think it was going to amount to much, and thought I'd be lucky to get 50 subscribers, and now I'm sitting at over 800, and I've met a lot of terrific, fantastic people and a lot of opportunities I never thought I'd have. And on my very first video, you told me, hey, I'm going to get you some views, and you sure did, and you really helped me a lot behind the scenes, and I really appreciate it. It's been way more than I've ever expected. I've got a ton of Georgia fans, Alabama fans, Florida fans that watch the show, and it's just been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to do that when I find somebody new, or if someone lets me know, hey, I'm starting a channel, and it ties in with what I do some kind of way. Then I always try to do something. I mean, that's how I sort of got started. I've told this story a bunch of times before, but and I know Law Tide. He's been on your show a few times, but I had a YouTube channel, but I wasn't even making football videos. And Law Tide happened to see one of my videos, and I had a Georgia flag in the background. And I don't remember whether he just left a comment, or if he messaged me some kind of way. But anyway, he was like, "Hey, there's a group of us on here that make college football videos, and we're always looking for more." Anyway, long story short, I said, "Yeah, well, I'll make one or two." And it didn't take long before I had pretty much changed my entire channel to college football. But I have a lot of fun with it. I know you do too. And every time I do one of these where I have somebody on from another team, I always get some people who act surprised, like that we get along. Like they think that I hate every Tennessee fan, or you hate every Alabama fan or Florida fan or whatever. And I tell them all the time, arguing about football on YouTube is no different than arguing about it in real life. I mean, I grew up in Georgia, but I've had friends that were Florida fans, Florida State fans, Alabama fans. My brother's an Auburn fan. One of my best friends in high school was a Tennessee fan. And yeah, we argued about football all the time, but we didn't hate each other, and people always seem surprised. Do you ever get any of that?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at the reception I've gotten. My first big video, I guess, was the post game Florida, and then my next one, which was my biggest, was the post game Georgia, where I had a message to Butch Jones, and I just couldn't believe all the Georgia fans that showed a lot of support. Hang in there. Yeah, there were some smack talkers, but that's what we're supposed to do. And it's just been an unbelievable experience for me, because I've never really been in that game before, and man, we do get along. Most of my guests and most of my viewers are not Tennessee fans, and that's what surprises me, is all the fans of other teams that watch my show and your show and Law Tide. And it's just we got a lot of camaraderie, and you've helped me a lot behind the scenes. And I joke around saying, man, I've been wanting to shut your pie hole all year and realized I can't do it. And so if you can't beat them, join them, you know. But really, behind the scenes, we get along, and it's great. I actually love it. There's a lot in store that I'm going to do. You know, you told me early on in private to just be creative, and I've got a lot of new things for the off season coming up. So I'm hoping it'll take off for me.
Yeah. Of course, this is Uncle Lou here. I'm on live today with Catfish. He has a YouTube channel, The Volunteer Road Show. So if you guys aren't subscribed, when you get done watching or when this show is over, if you just type Volunteer Road Show into the YouTube search, it'll come up. But he's a good guy, Tennessee fan. I'm always curious, Catfish. I catch a lot of this, and I'm never really sure if I'm just lucky this way. Or if it happens to other people, but some of the maddest people on LouTube are Georgia fans. And a lot of that, for me, stems from the Mark Richt situation. And I know Tennessee has had some coaching changes. They just had one. But it was a little bit of a different situation. You know, the Georgia fan base was sort of split on the Mark Richt firing. And whereas the majority of the Tennessee fan base, I mean, it's got to be between 95 and 100%, I would think, was perfectly okay with firing Butch Jones. But I still to this day catch a lot of heat from Georgia fans, and most of it, like I said, stems back from that Mark Richt situation. Do you ever get any heat? Do you ever get blasted by other Tennessee fans who maybe disagree with you on one thing or another about the Tennessee football program?
Yeah, early on in the season when Butch Jones his seat was getting hotter and hotter by the ball game, I still wouldn't come out and blast him. I was like, man, I think it's a bad deal to fire a coach midway through a season. There's just a lot of bad things we've got to get through the end of the season. I caught a lot of heat, but as that temperature started raising on his job there, I started coming out against him, and then I had people saying I was bashing him and shouldn't be bashing him. But yeah, most of my bad comments have been from Tennessee fans. I get a few that from fans from other teams that really don't know what satire is, and I end my show, hey, we're going 15-0, I promise you that. And you're an idiot, you're stupid, and you know, I know we're not going 15-0. I mean, we might go 14-1, but we ain't going 15-0, you know.
Right. I get a lot of comments. Most of the like really hateful comments that I get are usually from people who that's the only video they've ever seen. Like they're not a normal Uncle Lou watcher. And like, for example, if I make a video, I made a video, I don't know, it might have been in the off season or in the beginning of the season about Josh Rosen, the quarterback from UCLA, and I was pretty hard on him. Well, obviously, I'm a Georgia fan. The majority of people that watch are SEC fans, but I do have some from other conferences. But when I make a video like about Josh Rosen from UCLA, the Pac-12, that brings in an element that doesn't normally watch Uncle Lou. So I'll get a lot of heat from people when that happens. Usually, I mean, a lot of Tennessee fans weren't very fond of Uncle Lou for a long time, last year in particular. But the ones that stuck around and watched more than one or two Uncle Lou videos, it didn't take them long, to sort of figure out what we're doing here, and that, I'm not really a bad guy. This is just football trash talk. And so usually the ones that stick around, whether they're Tennessee fans, Pac-12 fans, whatever, they usually figure it out pretty quick. And they might not like every video I ever make after that, but at least they get it. They understand. So I tell people all the time to stick around. Like I'll catch them in the comment section and I don't recognize the name or something, and I'll type back to them, stick around. Watch a couple of videos before you break out your Uncle Lou voodoo doll, and start stabbing my eyes out or something.
Yeah, in fact, I posted I was going to be on your show today, and I'm going to give a shout out. He doesn't know I'm going to do this, but he said, man, I love your show. I'm a Vols fan, but I'm going to check that out later because I really love Uncle Lou. He's funny. And that's Chase Wright. So Chase Wright, when you watch this, I give you a shout out there. But yeah, I got started getting a lot of traffic from outside the SEC, especially when I did that conspiracy video with that Ohio State fan who said the ESPN cooked the books. I mean, I started getting a lot of Ohio State fans in there because I sided with Law Tide. Because hey, I'm an SEC homer. I'm not ashamed of it. And if you hadn't seen that video, go check it out. But yeah, that's when I started getting a lot of non-SEC fans. But yeah, they really don't know all the videos before, and maybe that's a problem with me. Maybe I should make that more clear on some of my stuff that I do, that hey, this is just a stick or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you usually can tell from the comment, like if they're really pissed off, or if it's just, you know, one of those people that's talking trash back to you. You learn to tell the difference real quick when you get into doing this sort of thing. But I have to ask you this, since I have you on and you're a Tennessee fan, and we're going to get into some other stuff here in a few minutes that doesn't have anything to do with Georgia or Tennessee or even football. But I have to ask you, since I have you on, what are your initial thoughts? Obviously, any 5-star recruit can be a bust. Any 2-star recruit can be an All-American and make the NFL. We understand that. But what's your initial sort of thoughts and reactions to the 2018 Tennessee class, and sort of give me a grade for Jeremy Pruitt on how you think he handled his first signing class?
Well, with all the upheaval and turmoil on Rocky Top, and if you're looking at it objectively, you have to be pretty happy and impressed with a 20th ranked recruiting class, because it was getting pretty ugly on Rocky Top with all that coaching search fiasco, and I think he smoothed the waters out a lot at Tennessee, and I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously a 20th ranked class isn't where you want to be every year, but for all that's going on, I'm pretty happy. And we got J.J. Peterson, an Alabama flip, and I was pretty excited about it, and everybody thought Alabama was going to get Quay Walker, and I tell you what, was that not a troll job? When I saw that, I said, oh my God, Uncle Lou is going to be chirping about this when he put that Tennessee hat on and then threw it away. I just knew he was going to come out on that.
That was gold.
But yeah. That's got to be the troll job of the century. But yeah, I actually am pretty happy. I'm pretty excited. You've been reading a lot of mixed reviews about the projection for next year. We're going to finish last, and one article says, hey, we might make a run for number 2 in the East, and I don't know where we're going to be. It's just too early to tell, and I've been excited over the last couple of coaches we've had with their introductory press conference, and it didn't pan out too good. So I'm just going to take a wait and see, but I'm going to be pulling my heart out for them, and I have a lot of faith. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people this year. I mean, we're not going to win the East and, you know, maybe not go to a bowl, but I think the bowl should be our priority. And go 6-6, 7-5. I think that's about right. But there's a good chance we could slip up and surprise a few people. There's 3 games that everybody says are automatic L's, and that's Georgia, Auburn, and Alabama. I don't think we'll beat Georgia or Alabama, but we might have a shot with Auburn. They've been streaky. You know, they're up and down. One year they're national title contenders, and the next year they have all the expectations and they don't pan out, and then they surprise people. So who knows what's going to happen with Auburn? But I'm excited for the season. Let's say that.
Yeah, it's going to be a long off season for sure. I mean, when I look at Tennessee next year, and I look at their schedule, and I've talked about this. Some people are probably tired of hearing about it, but it seems to me that Tennessee fans really need to temper their expectations for 2018 for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you have last year, you know, to base this year on, which wasn't very impressive by anybody's standards, and then you've got a new coaching staff coming in. Not only a new coaching staff at Tennessee, but Jeremy Pruitt is really an unknown as head coach. And then people say, well, Kirby Smart was an unknown. Yeah, completely unknown. That was a huge risk. Now, in Georgia's case, it paid off, but there's no guarantee anytime you make a coaching change, that it's going to work. And then when you look at Tennessee's schedule, and this is where I just have a hard time imagining Tennessee being a whole lot better record-wise. I think Tennessee could be a much better football team than they were last year, but I'm not sure that the record this year is going to show that. You look at West Virginia to open the season, a neutral site game in Charlotte. West Virginia is going to be a top 10 team in the preseason or close to it, 11 or 12 maybe. A lot of people are going to have them in the top 10. That's going to be a tough game to win right out of the gate for Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt. West Virginia's got an amazing offense, a typical Big 12 track meet offense. They've got a quarterback who can flat sling the ball. In fact, West Virginia's quarterback, I don't know if you know this, Catfish, but West Virginia's quarterback is the best quarterback Florida has had since Tim Tebow. Were you aware of that? Will Greer.
But I'm glad you shared that with me.
Yeah, Will Greer. But you open up the season there. I mean, I'm pretty sure Tennessee is going to be at least a touchdown underdog in that game. And you look at week 2 or 3, you play a couple of directional teams, a couple of nobodies. You'll win those games. So you're starting out 2-1. But then your next 5 games, sir, are just absolutely brutal. Florida, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina. You already talked a little bit about Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn. You look at Florida, that game's a toss-up right now, in my opinion. You guys get them at home. So we'll see. We'll know a lot more. Tennessee is going to be a complete unknown going into that West Virginia game. So we'll know a lot more then, obviously. And then South Carolina, a lot of people have South Carolina as a sleeper to win the East next year. Their quarterback, Jake Bentley, I give Carolina fans a lot of hell on here, but Jake Bentley is a pretty good quarterback. He's definitely one of the best 2 or 3 quarterbacks this coming up year in the SEC. They return a lot of talent from last year, and of course Tennessee has never beaten Will Muschamp. It's a real possibility, I think, when you look at that schedule. I mean, if things go bad, you're looking at 2-6 to start the season, in which case you'd have to win your final 4 games just to make a bowl game. Like you mentioned, Auburn, you're not sure what you're going to get there. Maybe you win that one, puts you at 3-5. Maybe you beat Florida even, puts you at 4-4. I think that would be probably, regardless of who you want to, whatever games you want to say win or lose, I think that if Tennessee can start the season 4-4, you'd have to consider that pretty successful given all the things I just talked about. And I'm just wondering, as Tennessee fan in general, maybe not you in particular, but you know more about the mindset of the Tennessee fan than I do. If Tennessee were to start 4-4, given that schedule, do you think that's something Tennessee fans would be willing to accept?
Well, we're a finicky fan base, and we get excited over the littlest thing, and a lot of that is because we're just grasping at something to be excited about, and there hasn't been too much over the last decade. But I think if you could really get in the brain of your average Tennessee fan, I think they would be happy with a 6-6, 7-5 season. I think they'd be saying, "Hey, that's pretty good," and that's probably about right. I mean, I'm shooting for 6-6, 7-5 as our goal, and I hate to say that that's our goal, but man, we're coming off of a bad run, and we're losing a ton of people. John Kelly, Rashad Golden, we're losing a lot of people this year, and that's hard to replace. Not only are you replacing coaches, but you're changing schemes. So there's a lot to overcome there. So I really don't know what to expect, but those first 4 or 5 games will tell the tale, I think.
Yeah, I actually picked Tennessee last year to go 7-5, and I thought like that would be pretty bad. Given I think you'd won 9 games to 2 years before that. Now, obviously, nobody saw a 4-8 season coming for Tennessee. Even the most diehard, Voltard haters like myself never imagined a 4-8 season. And so when I predicted 7-5, I figured predicting 7-5 was enough to get you guys riled up, and I was right. I look at the schedule this year and who you have coming back, and everyone else in the East and that kind of thing, and I think I may end up going with about 7-5 again, but I think that really should be considered a successful season for Tennessee, given the coaching situation, the schedule, and all the things that we've talked about. I mean, I'll do my official predictions over the summer, but just sort of, off the top of my head, I would think 7-5. I mean, if you go 7-5, that gives you a chance to go 8-5 with a bowl win. And then Tennessee fan can spend all next offseason saying, well, Kirby Smart went 8-5 his first year and then made the national title game. So then we'll get to hear you guys talk about making the Natty game in 2019, which would be worth it for me. But I'm with you. I think the Tennessee fans, I mean, they're so hungry for, a breakout season. And I don't consider, a couple of 9-win seasons. I don't really think that's what y'all had in mind. I mean, Tennessee wants to win the East. They want to win 10 games. They want to beat, Florida and Alabama and Georgia. And I don't think Tennessee is going to be terrible forever, but I think they're probably a year or two away, and that's if it turns out that Jeremy Pruitt is a legitimate head coach.
Yeah, a lot of the uncertainties is quarterback position. Who's going to be our quarterback? Is Garantano going to be the shoe in there? Do we have some competition with the guys we're bringing in? That's a big position. Everybody says that's the most important position. But you at least have to have somebody that can hold his own, kind of like a Fromm. He's not the greatest quarterback, but they molded the offense around him, and I think they held him back a little bit. Georgia did, but you've got some quarterbacks in the East. You mentioned Bentley, but Drew Lock, he's one heck of a quarterback, and I think if there's going to be a dark horse, I wouldn't be surprised if Missouri made a run in the East.
Yeah,
they could beat you.
I talked about Drew Lock and the Missouri offense all last offseason and got laughed at nonstop. And I looked pretty stupid the first half of the season. I mean, Missouri started out terrible. I think they were maybe 1-5 or something even to start the season, but they ended up winning their last 5 or 6 games, made a bowl game, got blown out by, I think it was Texas in the bowl game. But Drew Lock is the real deal, no doubt about it. Now, their defense, that's another story altogether as far as them making a run at the East. I think they'll have a season similar to what they had last year in that I think they'll beat a team or 2 or 3 even maybe that they're not supposed to beat. I just think with that defense and no real running game, I think they're going to have a hard time putting enough wins in a row together to make a legitimate push at the East. But you're right. If you're looking for a real long shot in the East in terms of gambling odds, Missouri would be the team to throw $100 on for sure. A lot of people are going to be on Georgia and South Carolina. Missouri might be that third option for people looking for an underdog in the East. But let's get off of the East and Georgia and Tennessee in general. And let's move on to something else here, and we'll get back to football maybe a little bit later. This is Uncle Lou here. Thanks for watching here on Uncle Lou Live. A special guest today from the Volunteer Roadshow channel here on YouTube. You guys can find it. Just search in the YouTube search bar, Volunteer Roadshow, and his channel will come up. You guys make sure and subscribe to him. Tell him Uncle Lou sent you. He's a good guy. Tennessee fan. But you know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about the Olympics. I made a video earlier, and I really didn't have anything to say or any real reason to make the video other than I wanted to let people know we were going to be talking about the Olympics on here today. But I mentioned this in the video, and I asked people to leave comments, and I'm just going to ask you now. When I was a kid, I was completely infatuated with the Olympics, and it never went away for me. I absolutely love the Olympics, and it doesn't even matter what the sport or event or whatever is. And I talked about curling in the video. There cannot be a dumber sport on earth than curling, but it's like the Shawshank Redemption of Olympic sports. If you're flipping through and curling, do you even know what that is? You know what I'm talking about, curling?
I've heard of it, but I don't don't even know the rules or the object.
I don't either.
Board on ice.
That's exactly what I say. I have no clue what they're trying to do. I don't understand the point system or the scoring system or how it works. I don't know what that broom does. I don't know if that speeds the thing up or slows it down or makes it curl. I don't know any of that. But if I'm flipping through the channels and I come across curling, I have to watch it. It's the weirdest thing, and I know I can't be the only one. There's got to be other people that are like that. But do you watch the Olympics? Are you one of the people that just says, "Well, I don't watch it at all," or do you watch it once or twice over the 2 or 3 week period? Do you watch it every day? What do you tell me? Uncle Lou wants to know Catfish's Olympic watching habits.
Well, I'm a lot like you. When I was, growing up in the 70s and 80s in high school in the 80s, yeah, it was a big deal. The Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics. It was very patriotic, and, we thought we was going to win everything, and I loved it. But as I've gotten into the profession I'm in, especially the last few years, I've been running the wheels off this truck, but I do catch a lot of it on YouTube. That's about the only way I can catch it because I'm driving so much. But yeah, I think there's a lot of infatuation with the Olympics. It's just a matter of timing for me, but I do like it, man. I remember when Herschel Walker was in the Olympics. Remember that?
Yeah.
Was he on the bobsled team?
Yeah. Hey, I was telling somebody the other day, if I could go back in time and be 5 or 6 years old and say, I want to be an Olympian, what sport can I do? I would choose bobsled. That just looks fun to me, and I know it's probably dangerous, but it doesn't seem that dangerous. Like, even if you flip over, I think you're okay. Now the luge and the skeleton, no, you couldn't pay me enough.
Oh, yeah.
I think is it the skeleton? One of them you go head first. I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
That is ridiculous. There ain't no way I'd do anything like that.
No.
I mean, I'm not that athletic as it is, but just to have no control, and even bobsledding, I'm wondering I'm pretty sure that the weights are regulated, and I mean, how do you beat somebody down there? What makes you go faster? I don't understand it, but them guys are flying.
Yeah. It's fun to watch, and of course, it's always funny to me when you get these countries like, Jamaica famously had a bobsled team, right? And when I was watching the opening ceremonies the other night, I can't remember which country it was, but it was a country in Africa. So there was no snow or anything. They had a bobsled team. It's always kind of funny to me when you see one of those type of countries end up in an Olympic sport like that. And a funny, not really funny, interesting. I guess it's funny, but an interesting fact for you here. The United States has, I think, 243 Olympians in the Winter Olympics this year. It's the most ever by any country. Not a single one from the state of Alabama.
You gotta be kidding me.
Now, they're really letting their country down, aren't they?
I think so.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Figure skating,
something. They should have something, and then, I posted this in a couple of Facebook groups, and I get the same responses from all these idiotic gumps, same thing. There ain't no snow in Alabama, Lou. How are we supposed to have... Georgia's got them. We already talked about Jamaica. Puerto Rico's got Olympic athletes. Is it currently snowing in Puerto Rico? I don't think so. Has it ever snowed in Puerto Rico? Probably not. But that's just a shame. I mean, these Alabama-type people they're really letting their country down.
Yeah, they're letting us down. I think, I don't know what it is about Alabama. It's all football in Alabama. That's all they know. And
that's it. You post a basketball score and they comment back Bear Bryant or something. I mean, that's that's it. That's all they can do. It's like that character. It's like 90 Proof for Luther. Bear Bryant, 16 titles. Bear Bryant, Nick Saban. That's it. That's all they know.
Well, I tell you what, their basketball team put a butt whooping 50 ways to Sunday on Tennessee. Golly, 28 points. I can't believe that.
Alabama's got y'all's number because I don't think anybody saw that coming because y'all are a legitimate team this year in basketball. Y'all may get a #1 seed, a number 2 or 3 at the worst, right?
Well, hey, I've said it on my show. Until September comes around, Tennessee is officially a basketball school.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to hang our hat on, and I'm going to be riding that horse all the way to the ground. And I like a lot of what Rick Barnes has done. I mean, I think he struggled a little bit and kind of fallen short on expectations, but he seemed to have us playing good ball now.
Yeah, I mean, y'all are a legitimate top 10, top 15 team, and I've been complaining a lot lately about the state of Georgia basketball, and I get a lot of the same comments from people. Lou, Georgia's not a basketball school. Well, you don't have to be a basketball school to make a 68-team tournament, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, Oklahoma's got a good team. Florida's won national championships recently and still has a good team. Tennessee's got a good team. South Carolina made the Final Four last year. There's lots of Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC schools that are quote-unquote football schools. Miami has a good basketball team. You don't have to be an elite basketball powerhouse or a quote-unquote basketball school to make the NCAA tournament. It's not like college football where you're just picking the four best teams. I mean, there's 68 teams make that thing, and my argument for Georgia basketball is look, I don't expect us to be winning national championships in basketball or making the Final Four, but I think that once every 3 or 4 years you should have a team good enough to make a 68-team tournament. I mean, that doesn't seem like that's asking for too much.
Well, you look at some of your top teams right now are not football schools. Villanova, you got Xavier. You've got a lot of small schools that can field powerhouse teams, heck, even Kansas. And you can't tell me that. I realize they have a lot of history, but it's a lot easier for a small school to be great at basketball than it is.
Oh, I think so too. And to me, that's one of the best parts about the NCAA tournament. I mean, not being a hardcore basketball fan, one of the reasons I love the NCAA tournament so much is because it's not football. Right, you get a chance to see some of these smaller schools make a run. You know, the Gonzaga. You mentioned Villanova, Xavier. You get to see a lot of these smaller schools get a chance to compete with the quote unquote big boys or big schools or whatever. And it's a lot more of an even playing ground in basketball. But I just think that whether you're Georgia or even Alabama, Auburn's got a good team now, a legit top 10 team. I mean, these aren't basketball schools, and they're still finding a way, Tennessee, South Carolina, they're still finding a way to make the NCAA tournament either on a regular basis or at least once every graduating class. Once every 3 or 4 years, you should be able to make a 68-team tournament. And, our coach, Mark Fox, he's been there 9 years, 0 tournament wins. I don't know. I'm just I feel like I deserve more.
Fill me in on something. I didn't watch your video, and I haven't been keeping up with Georgia basketball. And there may be some people that didn't see your video about Fox and his theft. Bring me up to speed on that. What's going on with Georgia and this Fox? And
well, he's been there. He's been there 9 years, and he's not terrible. I mean, every year he gets us to 17, 18, 19, 20, sometimes even 21 wins, but it's the same thing every year. Beat up on a bunch of nobodies early in the season. Conference play starts. You can't beat the good teams. We always end up right around 500 or worse in the conference and can't make the NCAA tournament and end up getting bounced from the NIT in the first round. And I don't think Georgia is ever going to be the type of school that recruits elite basketball talent, but Georgia's the 3rd or 4th richest country or state in the country in terms of high school basketball talent. We should be able to get guys that are talented enough, like I said, to make that 68-team tournament every 3 or 4 years. You look going back the last couple of years, we had J.J. Frazier, who was way undersized for a basketball player, but was widely considered the best or one of the top 2 or 3 point guards in the SEC while he was at UGA. This year, we've got Yante Maton, preseason player of the year. He's currently the leading scorer in the SEC. and we just can't win a game. We've won one game since January 20th. We're like 1-6. We've won one of our last 7 games. We got blown out by Vanderbilt, which is like a 7-win team. They're last in the SEC. They're like 7-16 or something. You know, we get blown out by them. We still have 2 games against y'all, which I'm not looking forward to that at all for obvious reasons. I might have to turn off comments on YouTube for a while.
Opportunity to run my pie hole for a change.
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, you know, you mentioned Tennessee losing to Alabama. Yeah, that was a surprise. Y'all should have won that game. You're a better team, but you were just coming off a win off of who? Kentucky. We can't beat. We've been playing Kentucky close. It seems like for 15 years and can't beat those guys. We haven't beat Florida in Gainesville since the 90s, I think. I mean, it's just, you know, same thing over and over and over and over and over. And like I said, I'm not expecting Georgia to win national titles. I'm not breaking TVs over basketball or anything like that. It just seems like a big school like Georgia, with the high school talent around here, being in a Power 5 conference, having a big name like we do, you should be able to have a team once every 3 or 4 years at least that's good enough to at least make a 68. Like I said, we're not talking about 4 teams here. This ain't football. 68 teams, you know, and the we're not a basketball excuse. I just don't buy into that. I mean, I just named off a bunch of schools that aren't quote-unquote basketball schools that still find a way to make a 68-team tournament. Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, Auburn, Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Michigan State. I mean, all these schools are in the tournament year in and year out. They still have good football teams. You don't have to choose. This isn't an either or. You know, the NCAA doesn't have some kind of rule where you have to designate yourself as a football school or a basketball school, and then you're not allowed to be good at the other one. You know, you can be good at both at the same time.
Well, Florida did that. Did they win a basketball and a football championship in the same season?
Yeah, I don't remember if it was in the same season, but I know they won. They've won, I think, 2 basketball championships in the last 10, 15 years or something, but I don't know. It just gets frustrating to me and aggravating. But anyway, I'm off on a tangent. There. But
something I want to say about Georgia football and their historic recruiting class. First off, we didn't even get a 5-star, and like you said, it doesn't mean anything. I tell you what Kirby Smart has done, and the couple of years he's been there has been phenomenal. I never saw it coming, and I don't know that you really saw it was going to be this big, this fast, but that recruiting class, and it could go either way. I commented on one of your videos. This could be a good thing or a bad thing. It may set the bar so high and get your fan base so frenzied that if they're not winning the East and the SEC, they're going to be very, very upset. But I think if anybody can pull it off, it's Kirby Smart, because he played for Georgia. He's an SEC guy, and I said on my podcast, he's obviously saying things that are resonating in living rooms with these prospects all over the country. And y'all have got fertile recruiting grounds, and you're not getting them just from Georgia. You stole one of our guys, Cade Mays, and he's going to be a heck of a lineman for you. But I tell you what, I'm just impressed, and enjoy it while you can. And I don't look for you to shut that Gator anytime soon. So, but what do you? I watched some of your videos, but realistically, what do you think this does to expectations with your fan base?
I don't really think, after what happened last season, I don't really think expectations could get any higher, even though, you know, just from signing the number 1 class. I think if anything, it's keeping the excitement going now through the off season. You know, now we're already looking towards the spring game now. You know, will we get to see Justin Fields play in the spring game? He's an early enrollee, but he broke his finger at the end of last season. You know, so I think more than expectations, I think the recruiting class gave people a reason to stay excited and motivated and interested throughout the offseason, which seems like lasts forever, right? But I've been telling people, really, for even before this recruiting class, because Georgia's losing a lot of seniors off of this team, and that's one of the opposing fans' favorite things to say to me is that I hope Georgia enjoyed their run last year. It won't happen again because you're losing all those seniors. And, to a degree, there's some truth in that. Now, talent-wise, overall, top to bottom, last year's Georgia team that lost the national title game by 3 in overtime to Alabama, that will be the worst Georgia team, talent-wise, top to bottom, that you'll see over the next 3 or 4 years. And that's not an opinion. That's just a fact. I mean, you can look at the recruiting classes. Our last 3 recruiting classes are 6, 3, and 1. The 3 recruiting classes prior to that were like 8, 10, and 16. So the talent is going to be there. The issue I think Georgia could potentially have this year is leadership. That's hard to replace. When you're talking about Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Roquan Smith on the defense, I'm more concerned really about replacing Roquan than I am replacing the running backs. And that's not to take anything away from Chubb or Michel. Those guys were great, and I'll probably never live to see Georgia have 2 running backs like that ever again at the same time. I mean, that was just unbelievable to watch. But we're not hurting at the running back position. If there's anybody out there who thinks we're struggling or going to have some kind of problem or issue running the ball next year because we lost Chubb and Michel, well, then they just haven't been paying very good attention. Defense-wise, I don't think we can replace Roquan Smith. I don't think there's another Roquan Smith out there. I think we're going to miss him at the inside linebacker position. We've got some talent. We've recruited well at the linebacker position, but until those guys get on the field and show me they can do it on Saturdays, I'm hedging my bets there. Most people go ahead.
Roquan Smith is a once-in-a-decade type player, and you're losing him and Lorenzo Carter, and like you said, Chubb and Michelle, and to say that you're going to have better talent the next 3 or 4 years, that ought to scare a lot of people. I want to know who you think, aside from Justin Fields, out of this recruiting class, who do you think is going to make the biggest impact next year, this next season?
I'll start with a guy that I hope ends up making an impact, and that's Tyson Campbell, 5-star corner out of the Miami area. Georgia hasn't recruited an elite cornerback since 2009. We haven't signed a 5-star corner or high 4-star corner since 2009, and that was really a weakness of our defense all year. Now, we were able to hide that against some bad teams, but it did get exposed a few times. The first half of the Missouri game, of course, the Oklahoma game, and the second half of the Alabama game. An elite corner is hard to find, especially at the college level, because a lot of your defensive backs at the college level were wide receivers in high school or running backs in high school or quarterbacks in high school. And so, they're quote-unquote athletes coming out of high school that don't really have a position assigned to them, so it takes them a while to learn that position. That's not the case with this guy. He's been playing corner. He's a true corner. He's got the size, the speed, the frame, everything that you look for. My concern is that I'm of the opinion that other than quarterback, I think corner is the toughest position to transfer to high school to college. I think the learning curve is steeper on corner than any other position outside of maybe quarterback, maybe left tackle. But he could have an impact. Justin Fields, he's not going to start, but I do think he'll play. I think we'll have packages for him, whether it's red zone type situations or certain times in the game where I think we'll put him in for a series or two to kind of give teams a different look. And if nothing else, it forces teams to prepare for that all during the week. If we come out week 1 against whatever no-name high school team we're playing, and we throw Justin Fields in the game in the second quarter, and he's running all over the place with the RPOs and the zone reads and all that kind of stuff, well, then South Carolina's got to spend that next week worrying about that. They can't just focus on stopping Jake Fromm and that type of offense, because it's going to be 2 totally different kinds of offense, when Fromm's in there versus Fields. Running back, Zamir White, #1 running back prospect in America, but he did tear his ACL late in the season. Now, I've heard from people, and you never know what people really know or what they just hear or whatever, that it wasn't that bad of a tear, that he's healing great, he's way ahead of schedule, he'll be good to go week 1. I find that kind of hard to believe, and people always say, well, Nick Chubb did it. Nick Chubb was in his 3rd year. Nick Chubb already knew the playbook. Nick Chubb already knew the blocking assignments. Nick Chubb already knew all the audibles. He knew all that. You're talking about a freshman here in Zamir White who still has to learn all that while not being able to actually be on the field doing it till, I would assume, at least July or August. He tore his ACL, I believe, in October or early November. So a year, if he's back at the start of the season, I will be surprised. But like I said, luckily we're not hurting at the running back position, so there really shouldn't be a need to rush him back or anything. But I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of these freshmen that make immediate impacts, because the guys we already have aren't exactly slouches. I think there might be 1 or 2 that get some starts here or there, and maybe 3 or 4 that make a meaningful impact. But I think the majority of them are going to be mop-up duty, special teams, that kind of thing, and they're going to have to earn their way onto the field.
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at your quarterback position with Fromm and Fields, Couch Coach said on my podcast that he foresees it being similar to Chris Leak and Tim Tebow at Florida that year, where they kind of split some time in different packages, rather than, Jalen Hurts and Tua, where Tua came in because Hurts was just bombing. So you really think that there'll be, and I think you're right, I think there will be a lot of packages with Fields, because he's too talented to keep off the field. He's got to have the ball in his hands. Otherwise, you're just wasting talent there. So
yeah, and I mean, obviously everyone knows by now we lost Jacob Eason to transfer. I mean, that wasn't really a surprise. I think everybody knew that was coming. But you look at Georgia last year. Week 1, your starting quarterback goes down. If we don't have Justin Fields there and Fromm goes down, we're looking at giving the keys to the car to a walk-on at that point. So people say, well, I can't believe Georgia has these 2 quarterbacks. I mean, Florida State made that mistake, right? They didn't have a backup plan. And Francois went down week 1 last year against Alabama, and it just completely wrecked their season. You look at Georgia, same thing happened, opposite result. We never missed a beat, and we were lucky that way. Not very many teams could lose a quarterback as talented as Eason. Say what you want about how he performed. The kid's got all the talent in the world. Not very many teams could lose a quarterback with the talent of a Jacob Eason in week 1 and be playing for the national title game 3.5 months later. So we were lucky there, and that's the first thing I think of when I think of Justin Fields. God forbid something should happen to Fromm. At least we have somebody who it looks like is going to be able to lead you at the quarterback position.
How do you think Chaney's going to handle those 2 players? And you think you've been up and down on him from what I remember.
Yeah.
How do you think he's going to handle that? Do you think he's capable of managing that, and then the pressure to start Fields or play more if Fromm doesn't play well? Because you don't have the running backs to bail you out like you had this year. You got some good ones.
The coaches, I thought, handled the situation pretty good last year with Eason and Fromm. I mean, Eason could have played week 4, 5, 6. I mean, he was ready to go. It was really a minor injury that he had. And I thought the coaches did a pretty good job of handling that. And their way of handling it was basically not to say anything at all about it. And I think what that did is it prevented the story from perpetuating itself. Yeah, they would get asked about it every week, after week 2, after week 3, and then you're 4-0, and then you're 5-0. They would get asked about it, and they just refused to talk about it. They wouldn't handle it. Now, I'm sure they were talking to Eason and Fromm and the guys on the team, but they did a really good job of sort of keeping all that out of the media. Now, it helped that we were undefeated. Now, if it had gone the other way and we started the season 3-3, it would have been a lot harder to ignore those questions, and you almost had to have put Eason back in at that point. But I think they'll handle it well. My concern, if I have one, is going to be what can Chaney do with a dual threat quarterback, because we've never seen it before. He's sort of known as developing passers, pocket passers like Fromm. And as far as what he can do with a dual threat that can run around, we haven't really seen that. Now, I've been told that Chaney has an entirely separate playbook just for dual threat quarterbacks that he's had and has been working on adding to as the years have gone by, and obviously has never used it because he's never had a guy to use it with. But we'll find out, because it definitely gives Georgia something that they haven't had in a long, long time. I mean, you got to go back to the early 2000s really to find a quarterback at Georgia that gives you the sort of skill set that Justin Fields gives you. But we'll see. Like I said, I think he'll play early in certain situations. And Fromm runs a lot of RPOs too. Just so happens he chooses the R option or the P option, more than he chooses the run option. And we'll see if Fields can do that too. Fields has got to prove to the coaches that he can play without turning the ball over too. I mean, that's always your biggest concern when you're talking about trying to play a true freshman at quarterback is not can he learn the plays, not can he make the throws, not that kind of thing. It's you worry about the turnovers. In high school there's certain throws you can make that you can't make at the college level. The defensive backs and the linebackers are just too fast. Windows aren't nearly as big at the college level as they are at the high school level. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm happy with Fromm. He won me over. It took him a long time to do it, but he did win me over. And as far as I'm concerned,
Chaney is driving a Cadillac. I mean, that's what he's going to be driving this next year. And I know we're running close on time, and I want to know what Uncle Lou thinks about the situation. The same situation at the average team in Tuscaloosa. What do you think their quarterback situation is going to be? Because that was a big shakeup. Do you think they're going to go back to Ertz, or is it Tua's team now?
I don't see any way they cannot play Tua. I mean, it was obvious to me and to a lot of even Alabama fans, even some that didn't want to admit it publicly, that Jalen Hurts just wasn't a good quarterback. He was too tentative with the ball. He chose to run the ball too often and too early a lot of the times. And I don't see any way they go back to Hurts. Hurts' best bet, in my opinion, if he wants to play football at the University of Alabama, is to learn a new position, whether that's tight end, whether that's running back. I don't know. But I just don't see any way imaginable that they go with Hurts, because it looks like Tua can run the ball, maybe not as good as Hurts, but you're not having that much of a drop-off there when he takes off running. I mean, there was a couple of plays in that national title game where he just made Georgia's defense look ridiculous. I mean, like a pinball machine, the way we were just bouncing off of him and running into each other and getting juked out. And then, of course, everybody remembers to throw at the end of the game. But if you go back and watch the second half of that game, he had way more good throws than just that last one. I mean, the guy has got some serious talent. Now, my one word of caution to Alabama fans would be this. Georgia did not prepare not 1 second for Tua Tagovailoa. Not 1 second. Now, I don't care what the Georgia coaches say. Of course, they're going to say that. They don't want to sound like fools or idiots or like they got tricked or whatever. They did not prepare for that Tua Tagovailoa. They spent all week preparing and figuring out the best way possible to shut Jalen Hurts down. And guess what? They did an amazing job. Amazing job. Hurts looked absolutely terrible in the first half of that game. I mean, he looked J.T. Barrett terrible. That's how bad he looked in the first half of that game. But when they put Tua in, Georgia's defense was just not prepared and just was not ready to face that kind of passing attack, and it showed.
Yeah. Well, I think it took a lot of guts to come in the second half, but I think you're absolutely right. They weren't prepared, and I would caution Alabama fans, all the Gumps out there, don't get too excited about Tua. I think he's a heck of a player, but don't expect the second half of that national championship game to be like every game next year, because he was still a freshman. There's a big learning curve, and in that now it's a big difference coming in and starting. And that's
exactly. Yeah, the pressure will be on him now for sure. There was no pressure on him. He didn't know that was going to happen. And I'm with you. I cannot believe, as good as Nick Saban is, he's probably the only coach in America that could have done that at halftime like he did. I mean, as much as I rag on Saban and hate him and can't wait for him to retire, the amount of balls that it took in a national title game to bench a quarterback who was, 26-1?
Yeah.
And put in a true freshman who had really only played garbage time against bad teams. The amount of balls that it took to do that is unbelievable, and there's probably not another coach in America with enough clout built up that could pull that off, because if that would have gone wrong, as great as Nick Saban is, there would have been people questioning him. So you can imagine any other coach in America tries something like that and it goes sideways, they would never live it down.
But just goes to show you how prepared that team was. They had to. You can't just have somebody who's sitting on the sidelines at practice and pull that off.
No.
So there was a lot of preparation all year with Tua, I'm sure.
Well, and I think that's another way Alabama benefits from all these top recruiting classes they've had is their practices have got to be some of the most competitive practices in the history of team sports. I mean, even their starters that are all Americans are not much better than the backups, and that's not a knock on the starter. That's a compliment on the backups, right? I mean, that's why nobody felt sorry for Alabama when they had those linebackers get injured and blamed that for their loss to Auburn. You can't have the #1 recruiting class for 9 years in a row and then tell me, well, we only lost because our linebacker was injured. Well, no, you've got 3 other linebackers behind them that are better than 90% of the linebackers in America. So no one feels sorry for you when that happens, but those practices have got to be unbelievable and unreal. But I'm with you. Totally different ball game when you know you're the starter. The pressure's going to be on. Teams are going to be preparing for him now. So does that mean he's going to come out and be terrible next year? No, I don't think so either. But I don't think it's a lock that he wins the Heisman just because he looked good in the second half against Georgia either. I think we need to wait and see what he does over the first couple of weeks. But under no circumstances do I see any way possible that Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback at Alabama.
Well, up until this recruiting class and your national championship game, I said we'll probably never, ever see a run like Alabama's been on over the last decade. But I'll tell you what, Georgia's showing me something. If anybody can do it, it's your coach, because he used to get blood on his jersey and bust them up.
Well, I'm going to – yeah.
A lot of potential there.
I'm gonna slow you down a little bit there. I know there are some Georgia fans who feel that way, and maybe it's just 38 years of disappointment talking in me right now. But to me, the only team in America that should have those kind of expectations is Alabama. Like you said, it's the greatest dynasty ever. I don't think it'll ever be repeated. And you mentioned expectations earlier. My expectations for Georgia for next year are the same as they were this past year. They haven't changed just because we made the national title game. My expectations for Georgia is to win the East and roll the dice in Atlanta for a trip to the playoffs. And that's really it. I really don't think any teams other than Alabama and Clemson should have the expectation of making the playoff, not even Ohio State. Ohio State's made it a couple of times, but one of the times that they made it, they shouldn't have been there. They got shut out by Clemson 31-0. They didn't make it this past year. And then you look around, who else has made the playoff? Washington made it 1 year. Florida State made it 1 year. Michigan State made it 1 year. Ohio State, I think, has made it 2 years. And then you got Alabama and Clemson have made it 3 years straight now. I think those are the only teams that can have those sky-high expectations like that. I think Georgia's goal should be to win the East with no more than 2 losses, hopefully just 1, and then roll the dice in Atlanta. I mean, if you can win the East or the West, you're 1 win away from a playoff spot in all likelihood. Now, it is possible you could have one of these years, like I think it was Florida a couple of years ago, had 3 or 4 losses, but won the East. You could have a situation where a team like that beats an undefeated team from the West or a one-loss team from the West, and then no SEC team gets in, but I think that's unlikely. So the goals haven't changed for me, even though we did have an amazing season, and I'll never forget it either. I'll never forget that season. It was unbelievable, but it's back to square one for me now. I want to win the East and roll the dice in Atlanta.
When you're talking about unprecedented runs, I'm sitting here counting right now, and Tennessee is going on what, their 10th year in a row of being off-season national champions.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, Tennessee's got to get back to competing for the East for sure. I mean, I laugh, and you know, I get it, the whole 15-0 thing, but Tennessee has got to get back to competing for the East. And like I said, as much as I hate Tennessee, and you could say that about Florida for this past year too, there's no way those two teams are staying down forever, as much as I wish they would. But anyway, we're going to end it right there. Catfish, I really appreciate you coming on today. This was a lot of fun, and I hope to do more stuff like this instead of just me blabbering, you know, for no reason. An hour at a time all by myself. I'm going to try to have more guests and co-hosts on. But Catfish, I want to thank you seriously for taking the time to do this, and I really hope I can have you on again. I'd love to do this maybe once a month at least throughout the off season, just to kind of pick your brain on what's going on and talk football with you.
Yeah, you told me you was going to be on my show, and I can't wait to do that. So I'm going to end it like I always do. Go Vols! We're going 15-0. I promise you that.
All right. Thanks, Catfish.
All right, buddy.
Once again, I want to thank Catfish for joining today. If you guys joined late and don't know who that is Catfish from the YouTube channel, The Volunteer Road Show. If you're not familiar with his channel, just search it up in YouTube. You type in the search bar, Volunteer Road Show, and his channel will come up. But he's been a good friend to Uncle Lou over the last year or so. So you guys be sure and go out and support him. So thanks again, Catfish, for being on the show. And thank all y'all for watching. I'm sorry I really couldn't reply to a lot of these comments in the comment section today. I did try to read as many of them as I could, and as usual, some of you are out of your ever-loving mind. But if I would have started arguing with you or rebutting all the crazy crap you were saying in the comment section, I would have been ignoring our guest today. So anyway, again, I want to thank everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. We will do this again Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If you are interested in being a guest on the Uncle Lou Show or co-hosting the Uncle Lou Show, please email me at crazyunclelou@gmail.com. I have had a lot of people email me and message me that are interested in co-hosting, and I look forward to getting with all of you guys at one point or another over the next couple of months. Also, don't forget, we have the live stream Tuesday nights and Thursday nights at 10 o'clock. Usually we stream NCAA football 2014 on those live streams and just talk football and talk sports. So that'll be tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Back here Wednesday at 3 with the Uncle Lou Show, and Thursday night again live at 10 p.m. And random pointless videos uploaded in the morning throughout the week. Great show today. All right. Appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a great day and an even better morning, too.